Hello everybody, this is Reality Josiah, and today we're going to do like a recap slash tier list of the current house guests. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, just like your overall thoughts on the season. And if you want to, feel free to like and subscribe, and also feel free to give me some recommendations on things you'd like to see me do more of. We will start off with my boy Michael. He's been one of my favorites since the start of this season. He's a true super fan. He's been doing great this season. Really, at this point, no real flaws in his game besides all of his winning. I love seeing someone dominate competitions when I'm a fan of that guy or girl. But I think he's starting to become a target, and he's going to be at risk of being backdoored every single week, no matter who's HOH. There are some people who definitely wouldn't even consider it, but definitely something to be afraid of at this point if I was him. So hopefully he plays his cards right and can just try to manage that moving forward, but I worry about him for sure. But for now, since he's HOH and he's just been dominating and making pretty good decisions, he's going in S tier. Next up we have Terrence. Terrence is Terrence. Terrence is a floater. He is on everybody's side, and it's starting to get kind of messy. He's not even a good floater. Like, he is getting caught in all of his agreements, and it's frustrating to watch on the live feeds because he will continually be in a conversation and be all into it. Like, he is on board of whatever that person's saying. And I'm like, oh, okay, Terrence is on board. Like, that's great. 5 minutes later, he goes into another conversation with the person who's disagreeing with that person, and he's all in. Like, he is leaning into it, and he's like, I'm real. Like, I'm real, and when I say it, I mean it. It's like, no, you don't. Like, that's the least true thing I've ever heard. Because, you don't know what you're going to do half the time. And you just do whatever you want to do. So Terrence is going in the D tier. I don't think very few people trust him in the leftovers, which is really what matters. At this point, you want to have at least a strong connection to someone who's in the leftovers. And he has none at this point because he's burned all of his bridges. So, D for Terrence. Next up, we have Taylor. I love Taylor. Taylor with the Lays. She's been doing great. I mean, she joined the leftovers. She's definitely a target for a lot of people. I don't think she's really anyone's number one, but she's in a really good position. Right now, if the leftovers were to have an internal civil war, she would be in the middle of it, and I don't think she would be one of their first targets, and so that's a really strong position to be in. One of her flaws is that she just hasn't had a chance. She hasn't had a chance. She hasn't been able to win any competitions. If she could get some real power and build stronger relationships and stronger trust, I think she would have a great chance to move farther in this house. The only problem with that is I don't think she's very strong strategically. And so I could see her making some really big mistakes with that power. But let's be optimists. I'm hopeful she will be able to do the right thing if she wins. So yeah, we'll see. I'm a big fan of Taylor. I can't put her in S tier for the reasons I mentioned, but she's definitely in A tier just because of the strong position she's in right now in the house. Monty is a tough one. Monty had a really strong HOH. People are starting to realize though that he is a threat, and people do think he's the head of the snake right now. And so he is also a target, and probably a bigger target than Michael as of right now. But I could see that changing depending on who's HOH. So I have some concerns with Monty, but right now he's in a fantastic position. He's been doing great the past few weeks. So I'm going to put him in S tier, but he's the most likely person to fall from S tier at this point in the season. I'm starting to like him more and more. He's growing on me. I wasn't a fan originally, but ideally, he can keep winning some competitions and taking out some of those people like Alyssa, Indy, Jasmine, and Terrence, who are definitely a threat to his game at this point. Kyle. Kyle's had a tough week. On Twitter, he was trending for KKK Kyle. On the live feeds, he had some very controversial statements targeting all the people of color in the house because they have something in common. I'll let you guys dig into that if you want to. I'm not going to really dig too much into it here. Kyle is going to go into B tier, though. I mean, I think he was definitely in a higher position before he started to fall head over heels for Alyssa and just everything for Alyssa, screw my game for Alyssa. He broke down earlier this week on the feeds just because he said this game is so hard. He's struggling between his heart and his mind. And honestly, for $750,000, I feel like it'd be pretty easy. Alyssa does have your back, so I do understand not wanting to get rid of her, but he's risking his own game at this point in trying to force work with people who are going to put her at risk, whereas like people like Monty and Joseph probably never would have started to target Kyle. So it's tough. It's a tough decision, tough for him, but he's going to be in B tier just because he's in that position where he can make a decision. And when you're in a spot like that, it's a very powerful spot, and as long as he doesn't screw it up royally by doing it where everyone else ends up being mad at him, he could definitely move up. I think personally I would love for him to fall and fail flat on his face, but he's in a solid position right now. Next, we have Mr. Muffingate. I think some people are calling him the Muffin Man. Turner, hilarious segment tonight, even funnier on the live feeds, just how chill he was about how he took Jasmine's muffin and how he's kind of played around with it on a nightly basis. I am starting to love Turner. He's in a fantastic position in this house. I think both sides will want to work with him if they start to go after the other. The only weakness to Turner's game is that he's not always the most strategic. A lot of people bring him ideas and he hops on board. He's not really thinking about the ideas more often than not, at least when it comes to the game. So I'm going to put him in S tier just because he's in such a strong position right now. And I don't really see anyone going after him that's not named Jasmine. But I am pulling for him moving forward. I'd love to see him start to get closer to Taylor. They talk on a nightly basis and have a pretty good friendship, but I would love for them to like work game-wise, even though neither one of them are the best at starting game talk, so don't really know if that's going to happen or not. Next up, we have Brittany. Brittany has had a fantastic week. She had a pretty strong week last week. Really kind of saving the leftovers this week, but I'm still going to put her in the A position just because of her lack of ability to win a competition is kind of hindering other people taking her seriously. I think like Taylor and Michael, they take her really seriously, but her game isn't showing to the house yet, which is fine in most cases, but I think the winner of this season is going to have to be pretty showy with what they do, and so she's just in a weaker position. If someone wants to target Michael and they miss, she would probably be up on the block with him, assuming Bestie's twist is ending this week, and so she would be an easy out potentially early on. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Ideally it wouldn't, but she's at risk. Joseph, I think Joseph is S tier, but I had to go back and forth on it because a lot of people don't like talking game with Joseph because he can be so in your face. This is the best plan ever. This is what we have to do. And then he'll be like, oh, but if you don't want to, like, it's okay. Like, it's totally fine. But this is the best plan ever, and if you don't feel comfortable with it, it's fine. It's fine. And so it's really hard to get past that. Like, you can't just have, like, a conversation with Joseph about him kind of being a little bit too much and extra. But on the flip side of that, everyone loves him. Like, people talk about how Monty's a threat, and they kind of put them together. Like, Monty and Joseph are a pair, and they're a threat together, and how they kind of run the game right now. But people are more so targeting Monty, and the girls pretty much refuse to vote out Joseph because they love him so much. And so I'm kind of going back and forth between S and A, but I kind of want to go S just because he has such strong relationships with all the girls. And the difference between like Brittany and Joseph is like Brittany thinks she has really strong relationships with the girls, but they kind of fake it for her, whereas they actually like Joseph. So just a little bit of a difference between the two there. D for Daniel. I can't go into it. No one likes Daniel. Like, if you're a Daniel fan at this point, you have to be a relative of his. Maybe. Maybe. Or maybe a friend. Like, Daniel has had an awful game from beginning to end. Week 1 was him being kind of screwed over, but even week 1, he couldn't form a strong bond or strong alliance with anyone. He was on the outside looking in, and he paired with Nicole, who ended up being a part of Poe's pack, which helped his game a little bit, but even that, like, he was never a part or a piece of a major alliance in this game that was controlling the game, and so he just really has always been on the outside looking in. Alyssa will stay at a C, because she should be in the D territory, honestly, because she doesn't do anything game-wise, and whenever she does, it's pretty god-awful. But her relationship with Kyle is major. Like, Kyle's working his butt off to try to make sure he protects them both and that they can work together moving forward. If Alyssa, or really if Kyle, can find a way to make the, like, Brittany, Michael duo work well with them and protect them for the rest of the game, Alyssa can be a pretty big threat long term. Just because she should be in a pretty good spot with the rest of the jury. So I think Alyssa's going to stay in C tier, but she's definitely at risk if Kyle fails, and her game is completely going to be determined by what happens with Kyle, unless she starts to make actual bonds with people like Turner and Taylor. But I don't really see that happening, but we'll see. Indy's a mess. Indy can be hilarious at times on the feeds, but more often than not, she's caught saying awful things about Taylor, and so personally, I have to lean towards not liking her. And game-wise, she does nothing. I think even on tonight's episode, she was like, Taylor joining my group is just bad for my game because I'll be more of a target. It's like, you're on the block last week. Like, what are you talking about, Indy? And also, what game? What game do you have? You don't have a game. And so Indy's just there, and I kind of felt this way since day one, like when we got their bios and stuff. I didn't really see a world where she was going to be a major game player. She doesn't really talk game with anyone besides the girls. She's always only comfortable just saying like, hey, I do what I like, I work with people I like to, and hopefully you won't put me up because I wouldn't do that to you. But it's also like, who would you put up at that point besides like Taylor? Because you say that to pretty much everybody. So she's going in D tier just because she's pretty much useless. She was a lot closer than I thought she was going to be in that HOH contest. And so that's pretty impressive. Like, it seems like she could win a competition. Jasmine, Miss Muffin, she was hilarious this week on the feeds. I think once she found out who did it and her taking it a little bit too seriously and her also just continuing to be annoying, we'll keep her in the C tier. I do think her game is a little bit better than Alyssa's, whereas if Jasmine can make it through the next few weeks, she will be someone that people want to use. Like, if Monty and Joseph kind of dominate the next few weeks, they probably won't target Jasmine a ton, and they'll probably want to help her go far. Michael's even talked about her being in his ideal final 3 or 4, and so it would be very, very easy for people to take Jasmine to the end and beat her, as long as the jury is not too bitter. And so I think she's in a pretty strong position right now to move up, but that would probably take her winning another HOH to really form something solid and not just be carried along. So yeah, I mean, that's how I'm feeling about the season. It's been a really good season so far. I'm really enjoying it. I want the leftovers to make it a little bit further, but I'm getting really excited about all the talk about them backstabbing and betraying each other. I'm just hoping it doesn't come and bite my favorites like Michael and Taylor in the butt. So yeah, let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, like I said, and look forward to seeing what happens on Thursday.